11. 11. And they say that 42 of the signers actually had slaves. 11. Ready to wipe out their wealth in exchange for freedom. To start this country on the right path based on freedom. 11. It's ready to wipe out their wealth. So we set the principle in place in the Declaration of Independence. And then they continue to try to get that principle put into practice, like I said. The Ordinance of 1784 was also written by Thomas Jefferson. It said that any new territories that come to the United States of America shall be free. No slavery, no servitude. It shall be free. Everything. You need 7 states to approve of it. The 6 on the left approved, the 3 on the right disapproved. Curiously enough, Thomas Jefferson was from Virginia. They had 3 delegates. The other 2 delegates voted no. So his state didn't approve of it, even though he wrote it. Georgia and Delaware were absent. Their votes did not count. South Carolina split their vote. Their votes did not count. There is 1 state left. Can anybody tell me quickly what state that is? Who said it? She's good. New Jersey. New Jersey. New Jersey had 2 delegates. The first delegate was an anti-slavery delegate. Obviously would vote in the favor of that language in the Ordinance of 1784. The second delegate, his name was John Beatty. John Beatty was also an anti-slavery delegate. Mind you, we are one vote away from stopping the spread of slavery into the new territories of America. And it's a freedom movement that's going on right now. People are starting to free their slaves because this is a freedom movement, the American Revolution. One vote away. The only problem is that on the day of the vote, John Beatty was deathly ill in bed. And he could not vote. And just like Georgia and Delaware, they did not accept it. Proxy votes, his vote did not count. And so that anti-slavery language of the Ordinance of 1784 was stricken out, was taken out, and Thomas Jefferson went back to Virginia and wrote this. The voice of a single individual would have prevented this abominable crime from spreading itself over the new country. Thus we see the fate of millions unborn hanging on the tongue of one man, and heaven was silent in that awful moment. Please raise your hand if you have ever heard that before. And you can look around, but nobody's raised their hand, by the way. But our Constitution was written in 1787. Article 1, Section 9 says that the migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808. Essentially, doesn't say, by the way, does the Constitution say anything? Does the word slave enter the Constitution at all? Not at all. The word slave is not in the Constitution at all. It's inferred here. But James Madison didn't want anything to do, the Constitution didn't have anything to do with slavery. So he did not put the word slave or slaveholding in the Constitution at all. But this inference is that the slave trade would end January 1st, 1808, which it did, and there was a great jubilation and great celebration. Black community celebrated immensely with fireworks on that day. Is this a pro-slavery or anti-slavery measure? Some people say so-so. I want to remind you that before the Founding Fathers came along, nobody talked about ending slavery. This is kind of a new thing, to end this institution. What are you talking about, ending this institution? Or to stop the transport of those slaves. There's great money in it. But they wanted to figure out a way to end it. So they gave both the current states 20 years, and it basically says to anybody else that wants to join the United States of America, guess what? You won't be able to bring any slaves in. That's what it says. So it is an anti-slavery measure to stop the progress or to stop the growth of slavery. That was basically, that is what the Founding Fathers wanted to do. They wanted to stop the spread of slavery. And if you could stop it from growing, then you can choke it off and eventually it will die. Nobody will have use for it anymore. That is what they wanted to do. Now, people talk about abolitionists from the 1830s and 1840s. They never talk about the abolitionists of the 1790s. The first abolitionist society came out in 1785, the Pennsylvania Abolitionist Society. And in 1790, they petitioned Congress to uphold the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and said this: the Pennsylvania Abolitionist Society has observed that many important powers are vested in you for promoting the welfare and securing the blessings of liberty to the people of the United States, and that these blessings ought rightfully be administered without distinction of color. 1790. They're saying, listen, you put in the preamble welfare and secured liberty for everybody. So live up to it. Let's get rid of this idea of this institution of slavery. Guess who presented this to Congress? Who was the president of that abolitionist society? Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin presented that to Congress. 2 months later, he died. So the last acts he ever did. Has anybody heard of that? Would it make a difference? Yes, it would. Who here has read Uncle Tom's Cabin? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have about 6 people that have read Uncle Tom's Cabin. Let me show you this. I live in Melbourne, Florida, which is the central coast, in the Atlantic actually. And in Melbourne, there's a little downtown area. I went to one of the bookstores and I found this copy that's 110 years old. It's unbelievable. 1900. Came out, but the book came out in 1852. Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, a white abolitionist, little lady, I should say, a little lady. Abraham Lincoln said, so you're the little lady that started the Great War. It was translated into 30 different languages. It sold more copies that century than any other book, second only to the Bible. Second only to the Bible. And it is, like I mentioned, probably the cause of the Civil War. Why? Why would it have that kind of an impact? Well, it has such a great impact that I put it in my book. Who here, by the way, I decided to go read Uncle Tom's Cabin just because I've been called Uncle Tom so often. I figured, let me go read what Uncle Tom is about, right? So I did, and I was shocked. Uncle Tom's Cabin, what is the definition of an Uncle Tom? Anybody?
Conservative black person.
Conservative black Republican, yes, here I am. The book definition of an Uncle Tom: a black man who will do anything to stay in good standing with a white man, including betray his own people. Sounds like an Uncle Tom, right? That's what the book definition is. Now, in the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, I present this every single time I speak because it's important for you guys to understand this. Uncle Tom is a derogatory term, right? Uncle Tom's Cabin, in the book he had 4 masters. His 3rd master was a lazy kind of a master, had a bunch of slaves, and he didn't really care. He just let them do whatever they wanted to do. And one day he came to Uncle Tom and said, Tom, I'm going to set you free. Tom had a wife and kids in Kentucky. And his current master said, I'm going to let you free. And he says to his master, not while master is in trouble. Imagine that. He says, not while master is in trouble. I'll stay with master as long as he wants me, so as I can be of any use. A little bit sounds like an Uncle Tom. I mean, he's got kids to take care of, he's got a wife in Kentucky, and his master says, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you free. And he says, no, I'm going to stay here. I call it the progressives' attack on Christianity, the fact that our kids do not read Uncle Tom's Cabin. The next few lines that I'm going to read to you will explain that. Not while I'm in trouble, Tom, said St. Clair, looking sadly out the window. And when will my trouble be over? When Master St. Clair is a Christian. When Master St. Clair is a Christian. You see, Uncle Tom, in the book, did not care whether you were a slaveholder or a slave. He didn't care what station in life you were. His path given to him by God was to bring people closer to the Lord Jesus Christ. That was his path in life. And when he was given his freedom, or offered his freedom by his master, he said, you know, you're this close. You're this close to me saving your soul, so that you can have eternal life. And I choose to stay here in bondage to save your soul rather than to be free. Who here among us would do that? And our schools don't read Uncle Tom's Cabin. If they do, they read a child's version of it, not the actual version. When Master St. Clair is a Christian. Uncle Tom was killed by his fourth master. Sorry to ruin the book for you. But he was killed by his fourth master. He was whipped to death by Quimbo and Sambo. As he lay dying, he looked up at his fourth master and said this, I forgive ye with all my soul. I forgive ye with all my soul. Does that sound familiar? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And the last two, Quimbo and Sambo, who whipped him to death, two overseers, after he was nearly dead and out of breath, they came to him, got on their knees, and said, tell us about this Jesus that's been hanging around you this whole time. And he looked up at Quimbo and Sambo and said this, I'd be willing to bear all I have if it'll only bring you to Christ. Oh Lord, give me these two more souls, I pray. And then he died. And nobody reads Uncle Tom's Cabin. I wish, I pray that I could be an Uncle Tom. In 1854, a political party was formed to follow through with what the Founding Fathers wanted for this nation. They had one platform and one platform only in mind. Abraham Lincoln, Republican, Stephen Douglas was a Democrat. And that platform was to stop the spread of slavery. The Republican Party was started in 1854 in response to the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And not many Republicans know that at all. The Kansas-Nebraska Act basically said that if a new territory wants to come to the United States of America, it's fine. They get to choose whether they want to be free or slave. They get to choose. The only problem with that choice is only white males can choose. That's it. Everybody else, you get what you get. Popular sovereignty. And Abraham Lincoln said, I don't like it. Here's what Stephen Douglas, the Democrat, said. If you desire Negro citizenship, if you desire to allow them to come into the state and to settle with the white man, if you desire them to vote on an equality with yourselves, then support Mr. Lincoln and the Black Republican Party, who are in favor of the citizenship of the Negro. And I'm in favor of confining citizenship to white men instead of conferring it upon Negroes, Indians, and other inferior races. As a Democrat, I didn't know any of this stuff. Didn't know it at all. By the way, Stephen Douglas ran for the presidency in 1860. He also ran against Abraham Lincoln for the Senate in the state of Illinois. Abraham Lincoln lost that race, obviously. Abraham Lincoln, in response to the Kansas-Nebraska Act, said this, the act has a declared indifference, but as I must think, covert real zeal for the spread of slavery. I cannot but hate it. I hate it because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it criticizes the Declaration of Independence and insists that there is no right principle of action but self-interest. I cannot but hate it. Both Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln were moderates in their own parties. Both moderates in their own parties. I don't have time to get into a lot of this stuff. That, like I said, my 3-hour seminar is extensive, but now I'm just scratching the surface for you guys so I can move on. I think I'm kind of getting low on time here, probably. But the cornerstone speech, I put it in my book, is 22 pages long, and it defines a government. The cornerstone speech says that the Founding Fathers got it all wrong. That Thomas Jefferson was delusional. He basically said that there is a superior race. and there are inferiors. And in the Cornerstone speech, he says this: our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea of the Declaration of Independence.